Welcome to Unlearning with Laura, the podcast where you get to rewire your mind, reclaim your power, and break generational cycles. I'm Laura Stiles, clinical hypnotherapist and mindset coach, and founder of The Mindful Generation, the place where parents come to transform their lives and live with more purpose and freedom. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Carrie, a screen-free voice messaging device designed for families who want connection, safety and independence without giving children a smartphone. As conscious parents, we know smartphones are powerful tools, but they also come with pressure, distraction and risks that developing brains simply aren't built for. Carrie, spelt Karri, offers an awesome alternative, allowing children to stay connected with the people who matter most, while protecting their emotional well-being and their childhood. You can take advantage of 15% off the Messenger One device. Just use code MindfulGen15 at the checkout. Check the link in the show notes to find out more. But for now, let's tune in. Kate Burgess is a speech and language therapist with over 16 years' experience and a mum of two. She runs her own private practice near Bath and Bristol. She is an expert in her field and often talks about the importance of early intervention. Kate's offering is designed to make good quality evidence-based advice accessible to more people in a timely way, rather than being stuck on a waiting list for sometimes years. Kate's whole ethos is about helping parents to know how to support their children during bath time, in the park, on the school run, during any of those everyday moments, because communication happens all the time, so we need support all the time. I think you're going to love this episode. Welcome, everyone. I have Kate Burgess with me today. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, hi.
Hi, I'm so pleased to have you on the pod, and I am very excited about this conversation because I know that there are probably many parents out there who either feel like they could do with a bit of support or some tips regarding communication and speech and language for their little ones, or perhaps people who just want to make sure that they're going to be doing the right things when their babies are hitting that age. So I'm going to dive in and ask you some hopefully very insightful questions and then pick your brain.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. First of all, whereabouts are you, Kate? Where are you located?
So I'm based in Keynsham, which is a small town almost bang in the middle between Bristol and Bath, so in the southwest.
Lovely. Okay. And so do you have your own private practice? Do people come to you physically?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So I used to work for the NHS after I qualified, and I think I worked for the NHS for about 11 or 12 years. And then we did the classic thing, had a baby, so decided to move out of London.
Yeah.
And both me and my husband are from the southwest, so we moved quite far out of London, sort of not massively commuting distance. And I have always wanted to work for myself. I don't know why. I don't have any family members in my immediate family that work for themselves. So I've not really got somebody to look up to and be like, yeah, they've shown me how to do it. But I've always just wanted to work for myself. So when we moved and I had to hand in my notice with my NHS London Trust, I just thought that was a brilliant time to just give it a go, because I didn't have to give up a security blanket because I didn't have a job anyway. I'd had to hand in my notice. So yeah, we moved down here. We actually ended up moving. It wasn't the plan. We'd already handed in our notice and then COVID hit. So we lived with my parents for a while, and that was brilliant for setting up a small business, because as much as it was really hectic, we were all obviously in the same bubble, and my mum and dad could help out with some ad hoc childcare. So as I was building up my business, I could ask them for some childcare rather than having to commit to her being in a preschool or a nursery or something 3 days a week, but not necessarily always earning enough money to cover the fees.
Yeah.
So it worked out really well. And yeah, now I've been working private practice for about 5 years.
Brilliant. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? It's just nice to have the freedom to manage your own diary and all of that sort of things. It's the best.
Yeah, it is.
Lovely. Okay. So why is your work important, and how exactly did you get into it? Is that what you were doing in the NHS originally?
Yeah, it was. So you have to be a speech and language therapist in this country to practice, you have to have a degree in speech and language therapy. So it's quite an intentional, you train for this role. And the reason I am a speech language therapist is because my sister, Jenny, she has Down syndrome. She's just under 2 years younger than me. And so growing up with Jen, I just saw firsthand how frustrating and annoying and how much a barrier to her being able to access things that she could 100% access, not having communication skills was. And when communication broke down, how frustrating and annoying and upsetting that was for her. And I suppose that's why I knew that speech language therapy was a profession in the first place. Because actually, if you don't come into contact with a speech language therapist, it's kind of one of those jobs that you would never know existed. If you don't need it, why would you? And I just, when I was looking into it, you know, when you're like 15, 16, you're trying to decide what A levels you should do, thinking about what you might want to do at university. I kept coming back to it as having that really nice mix of, I have to spend some time in the office and writing reports. And, you know, it's not all on my feet all day, every day, but I do have a lot of client facing time. And I love that.
Yeah, nice. So you've got a nice balance there,
Yeah.
and it's meaningful when it's actually when a business has been kind of birthed from something that is a experience from childhood, or you know, just feels meaningful. It just makes the work actually a lot more enjoyable, and there's like a
Yeah.
nice kind of passion for it, isn't there? So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And what would be the signs of a child that might need to be getting that kind of support? What are like the examples? Would it be stammers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, yes, but I think you in like giving an example of stammer, you are looking at the like really easily observable behaviors from a child. So often people will say something like a stammer, or they might notice that a child is making lots of mistakes with their speech sounds. So, as example, calling cat a tat, for example, so just mixing up some of the sounds in the words they're saying, but doing that quite a lot that it starts to be quite tricky to understand them. And you're not wrong that I see children who do both of those things, but lots of the less obvious or less easy to just observe and immediately notice signs are things like child maybe not turning to ask you for help when something has gone wrong. So when that ball rolls under the sofa and they can't get it, I want to see a child reaching for the ball. And usually, you know, I'm talking about a young child here, like 18 months or 2 years or something. Usually they'll try and get it for themselves. But then when they can't, they'll start crying and they'll turn to look for their caregiver to say, hey, have you noticed? I need some help here. So I think some of the earlier signs are trying to get the ball and just keep trying, or then just start crying, but not doing that turning or looking or calling for mum or dad or granny or whoever's looking after them that day. I also really am interested in a child's ability to understand. So when you say go and find your shoes, of course, so many of us who parents know that you can say go and find your shoes, and that does not mean for any minute that that child will go out and find their shoes.
Yeah, quite the
But
opposite
there is,
usually.
yeah, but there is often that difference, isn't there, between you're not going to get your shoes because you have not understood what I've said versus you're not going to get your shoes because you're being a bit of a pain and you are much more interested in that Lego toy that you've got
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
So I'm really interested in like how much language a child understands, who they're directing it to, what kind of communication attempts they're looking for. And a really great milestone for parents to know is 16 by 16. And what that means is that we're ideally hoping a child has 16 gestures by the time they're 16 months old. So a gesture is
Oh,
giving a high five, waving hello, blowing a kiss, nodding a head, shaking your head, all those kinds of things. But the evidence is saying that that's actually a better predictor of a child's language ability as they get older than the number of words that they say. We're obsessed with, oh, they've got 20 words, or they've got 15 words, or
yeah.
mine's got 50 words. But you're like, we love that. And of course we do. It's so exciting when you hear your child talk and use their voice. But actually, what we know is that that use of gesture is a much better predictor of later language skills and is something that actually, as a speech therapist, I'm a bit more interested in.
Okay,
Um,
interesting. That is
yeah,
fascinating. That's a really good tip, like really helpful. You could literally just sort of audit them on a day with a piece of paper and make a note of those 16 things, couldn't you?
yeah,
So it's about
yeah,
like communication as a whole, not just actual speech.
exactly that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. And actually, the speech bit is, if you think, I always describe how language develops as a tree growing. You need roots first and you need a trunk before we look at the leaves. And often people come to me going, oh, my child's not talking. They're the leaves of the tree, which is true and definitely something to mean that you seek out my support. But when we unpick what's going on, I go, yeah, we haven't got any leaves because we haven't got a trunk yet. That we might need that first.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of making sure that we're noticing things early on. But I have to say, I think 9 times out of 10, parents who meet me and come and work with me, come to an assessment, go, yeah, I worried about this a year ago, but we didn't want to act too soon. And we were worried that we were being a bit over the top. Or Jill, 4 doors down, said that her son didn't start talking until he's 6. And now look, he's fine. And you think, yeah, Jill's son was the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And is Jill's son fine? Is he?
We don't know if Jill's son is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm going to find this conversation a lot more insightful than I initially anticipated. And I don't mean like, oh, I wasn't getting excited about it prior, but it's more that I'm now thinking about my youngest, and like he, for a good, I want to say 18 months or so, did have a stammer, like very, not like super stammery, like, but it was more that he was elongating his words as he was speaking.
Yeah.
So he was
Still a
saying,
stammer.
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he would be like like that, like for
Yeah.
saying that. And I remember saying to my husband at the time, I think it's just going to come. I think it's just because because he was the youngest in his year, actually he was the youngest in the school when he started school. We actually ended up deferring him halfway through that year. And I think that it was all just a bit too much of his brain, because he'd only just turned 4, he'd gone to school, and I think it was just like, what the heck is going on? My brain can't cope with all of this. So I was like, I think we just need to give him time. And we did, but I'm actually, and I have to say, like, his speech is good now. He doesn't have any stammer, but I wonder if we'd have got any support, would things have been different? And also, do you ever find that if people don't get that support, does it sometimes mean that like things can happen in the future that we could have stopped?
Yeah. So with a stammer in particular, there are a couple of things that we would sort of go, oh, that we don't want to. So with a stammer, we typically don't want to wait too long, because while, it sounds like your son just did outgrow it and did really well, there is just as much chance that he would still be stammering now, for example. Particularly around a stammer, I'm looking for case history. So I'm looking for family history. Is there a family history of a stammer? I want to know if there have been some really big changes in family life recently that might explain it. So for your son, it might be really clear to go, oh, he's just started school. That's a huge leap for him. Maybe that's why. And maybe that's why it also resolved by itself for your son without needing any intervention. I also look out for like how long it's been happening. So 18 months is quite a long time for it to completely go. If you had met me in that time, I would have been saying, come on,
Yeah.
come and see me.
Well, that's what I was just thinking that as you were speaking. Yeah.
So sort of how long it's been going on for. And I think, as a speech language therapist, I am absolutely delighted when somebody contacts me and I go, actually, do you know what? That's age appropriate. You don't need to worry about that. That is a great day for me to be able to say, not worried about that. Off you go. And that is a great day for the parent. But equally, it's a great day for the parent when they go, oh, okay, I'm a bit worried about something. And I go, yeah, okay, let's do something about it, because then you're on a plan. Then then something is happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, with a stammer, we also tend to see that boys more than girls stammer. So being a boy is a bit of a red flag of going, oh, we'll keep a bit more of a close eye on that. But length of time that's been going on for, I don't really want to hear about it happening for 6 months or more. And if there's a family history, I would be more inclined to get support sooner rather than later. Again, it might just be that the speech therapist says, not too worried about it now, but let's check in and again in another 6 weeks. And this is when I need you to come back to me. And that's great then. I'm not saying that you would definitely, first day you've heard it, go quick. That's it. We need loads of speech and language therapy, but it's better to just be mindful of it and keeping an eye on it and maybe checking in with somebody than it is to just leave it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how about children who are just non-verbal, just completely non-verbal, a stage where they should be starting to speak? What do you do in those instances? I mean, I guess I can't really ask you that because it's going to be specific to the child, but I guess if someone is going through that right now, what would be your first piece of advice?
So I think if a child is pre-speaking, the first thing I would say is try, and I think this is almost impossible what I'm going to ask you to do, but I am going to say it anyway, try not to panic, because no good decisions are ever made from panicking. And it's really hard to parent when you're in panic mode.
Yeah.
But I think if your child is not talking when you are expecting them to talk because of their age, that is when you need support. And if anybody who is listening to this follows me on social media, you will see that I am really not a fan of the wait and see approach. because actually all I think it is just let's just wait and delay. That's all we're doing. What are we waiting to see happen?
Yeah.
There are some children are late talkers. Lots of toddlers are late talkers and go on to spontaneously catch up all by themselves. But we're not brilliant as speech and language therapists at knowing precisely which of those children will go on to catch up and which of those need intervention. We know that early intervention is incredibly effective. It's often has better outcomes for the child, but it is also often more cost effective because you need less support to close the gap, to meet your peers and continue to develop with them. So I think if you have at the moment a child who is pre-speaking, but you are expecting them to talk, you need a referral to speech and language therapy.
Yeah.
It is my really and truthful, honest answer. And that might mean that you have to advocate quite hard for your child to not be put in a position of let's just wait and see. But honestly, if your child should be talking, I am a speech and language therapist. I deal with people being able to communicate. Talking is how we as humans is our preferred method of communication.
Yeah.
You have a right to see somebody like me, child's pre-speaking, when you were expecting them to talk.
And how does it work? The process that's involved, is it that you go and speak to a teacher and then they say, or a teacher might come to you and say, hey, we're a bit worried. And then you go to the GP and then they give you a referral. Like, how does it actually work when it comes to?
It can be, it will be different in every NHS trust, but in an ideal world, and I think most speech and language therapy teams would have this system in place, they will have an open referral system, which should in theory mean that a number of people can make a referral into their waiting list and their pathways. So you could ask your health visitor, you could ask your GP, you could ask your preschool teacher, nursery nurse, your child's teacher. If they're in school, you could probably ask their SENCO, so the special education needs coordinator in the school. And lots of preschools now have a SENCO or somebody sort of taking on that SENCO role. But I also think if you are not really getting anywhere, or you just feel like, actually, I don't need to wait 3 weeks for the GP appointment, I want to do it now, like I quite like to do it today, right this second, I would say it is worth having a Google of your local NHS speech and language therapy team and seeing if actually you can download the referral form for yourself and fill it in. If you do that, try and find somewhere. I mean, I have it on my social media, but it will be all over the internet, sort of how typical communication develops, because it will break down all the different skills that are involved and sort of support and supplement and complement language and communication development. So things like attention listening skills, social motivation or social interaction. And that might help you to just really give a very detailed and full referral showing this is what my child's attention is like, this is what their social motivation is like, this is their understanding, so that when you fill in that referral it's really complete, which just makes it easier for the person who receives that referral and then has to triage and decide what to do with that child, to put them in the right place, to direct them to the right service, because the referral is really comprehensive and complete. It doesn't have to be masses and masses. In fact, please don't make it masses and masses. I've been the person doing those triaging. The ones that are really long, you're like, I didn't really need all of this. You had me on the first page. Sure, you can come and see us.
Yeah.
But so you don't want to make it so long that it's a big job for somebody to read it. But just having a couple of sentences around each of those areas would be extremely helpful.
Oh, that's so good to know. Let's just talk about listening for a minute, actually, because that's something that comes up quite a bit in my work. As you know, I'm a parent coach and I support parents of young children, and often a big issue that they come to me with is they just don't listen. They just don't listen. They don't hear me. I get frustrated. You know, we have stressful times in the mornings and this kind of thing. And I've got a kind of process work that I use to kind of coach them through that. And a lot of it is often down to, and we'll take a deep dive actually into the parents' listening skills and how they listen and what's modelled. But then there's other things involved. But what are your thoughts on the listening side of it? Like, what can you say that might feel helpful to someone who has a child that just doesn't listen?
Well, I would say get a routine in place, because most of us have a bit of a routine for those times, like the morning, getting out for school or out for preschool. We tend to have a bit of a routine there. But I would say really dial into the routine and have a really strong routine that feels very familiar, so that the child isn't relying on being able to listen and hear and understand the words that you're using. They also have an idea of, I know what to expect.
Yeah.
I would say have really firm boundaries around what is distracting your child from being able to listen or follow the routine, and try and remove those things. So for me as a mum, what that means is that even when there actually might be time in the morning for the TV to go on, it absolutely does not go on, because I know once it's on, it's really hard to get my children away from it
Yeah.
to then go and put their shoes on, because now it's time for school. So it's just a hard rule. It's not going on. I would also then say if you can get a really nice, strong routine, I would then add in some visual support. So I
Mm.
would have pictures of what you're going to do. I would have, in schools now, they often give children like those mini whiteboards. They're like an A4 page, but they're size, but they're
Yeah.
just a whiteboard.
Yeah, my son uses that in year one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got one for work, and when both my kids have been tricky at like bath time or bedtime, I've just gone and got that out of my work bag and just drawn pictures. And I am a rubbish drawer. I really am terrible. It doesn't matter. I can draw something that looks like pajamas and write PJs on underneath it. But getting your child to like be able to see means that, again, you're not asking them to rely solely on the words that you're saying.
Yeah.
It helps sort of reinforce that
Yeah.
routine. And then you can get the child involved in that. They can maybe draw some of the pictures for you the night before to say, right, this is what we're going to do in the morning. They can put a big, fat, nice, big cross through the things that they've done and be motivated to see that, oh, look, I've crossed 3 things off now. I've only got 2 more things to do. That could be really helpful as well. And then I think probably the final thing, because I know I do this as a mum, the mornings that don't go very well are the mornings when I'm trying to do loads of things as
Yeah.
well. And often those things are on my phone. And so
Yeah.
I'm saying, go and get your shoes on. And then I'm looking at my phone, and then I'll look up a couple of minutes later to be like, you haven't got your shoes on. This is a nightmare. But I've said it once and then not followed through. And I'm also not getting my shoes on. So
Yeah.
where is the support to my children to say, mummy really means that? It's not there. Easier said than done. I know sometimes the things that we're doing on our phone will be really important, like checking with the school WhatsApp group, what are we supposed to wear today? It's Red Nose Day. I can't remember. Help. But if it's something that can wait or should wait, really trying to not use that at those stressful times.
Definitely. Oh, that's so helpful. I think visuals are such like it's missing a trick. I think sometimes we just don't think of it, and we like you said, we're in our routines, but also we're up against it time wise in the mornings. But actually, I have got one of those little whiteboard things in the cupboard behind me. I think I'm going to get that out today and just start
Yeah.
giving that a go, because kids love a visual, don't they? Well, I think all humans love a visual.
They absolutely love it. You could use post-it notes. You can use the back of an envelope. If you've got
Yeah.
an older child who can read and write, you can just write the words out. You don't even have to bother drawing the pictures.
Mm.
But if you are doing it with a slightly older child, then getting them to have some ownership so they write it out for you or they get to tick it off. It sounds so simple, but I can't tell you how much kids love doing the role of the parent or the teacher.
Yes, that's true. Because again, like my youngest, he often says, "Can we play schools?" And he likes to just boss me around. And the other day,
Yeah,
he was the teacher, and I was pretending to be a little kid. It was quite fun. But yeah, and he was just really enjoying just
yeah,
teaching me and being the boss. And I was just
yeah,
like embracing it. I was like, "This is great. This is his
yeah,
turn now to have some control," because all day long he's been told what to do for 6 hours or whatever. So yeah, things like
yeah,
that we just love.
exactly.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and can we talk a little bit about the Sen crisis? And I know that you've
How long
mentioned,
have you got, Laura?
oh, I know, yeah. When I sent you the form for this podcast, you mentioned that children with special educational needs are often left to flounder without support. Let's talk a little bit about that, if that's okay, because I'm sure many people will hopefully get a bit
Yeah.
of support from this.
I It's really difficult to succinctly sum up what I feel about this, because I can't remember a time in my life when I haven't loved somebody who has got special education needs. My sister is not that much younger than me. I don't remember before she was born. And I feel very passionately and strongly, and will advocate for her until the day I die, that she has a right to thrive, and she has a right to the actually not that complicated or difficult support to enable her to do that. And I am now working with so many families who come to me for private speech and language therapy, not because they are extremely wealthy families, but because they are put in the abhorrent situation where there is literally no alternative. if they want to see a speech language therapist, they are going to have to pay for it themselves. And so I have worked with families who tie themselves into knots. Some of the mums that I work with are nurses and they take on extra shifts. Dad takes on an extra job at the weekend. And I'm not an expensive speech language therapist, by the way. I'm pretty much on par. It's not like I'm charging 5 times the amount somebody else is. So I just think that there is a crisis at the moment, but we've just had this new white paper come out. It looks all brilliant. There's going to be an extra 4 billion in funding. Fantastic, brilliant. Where has that 4 billion been all this time, by the way? But the elephant in the room, the thing that nobody has worked out, or that everybody who works with young children knows, but for some reason this message has not got through to the people that are making the decision making, is that when you start school and you say, oh, we're going to give you early help by identifying early on, if that child is already in school, they're already at 4.5 on average, say, that's not early help, that's late. That is past the period of critical language development for humans. Early support, early help is 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And there are some brilliant papers out there, and it's a very, very difficult thing to quantify, but one was called Cost to the Nation of Children's Poor Communication. And it's came out when I graduated. So it's nearly like 16 years old. But that managed to do some analysis, and it just worked out that for every pound spent in early years, it saved you like £5 at school age or something like that. I can't remember the exact details. And like I say, it is old now, so it wouldn't make sense in today's society now anyway. But essentially what nobody has done is gone, oh, but I wonder what would happen if we put 4 billion into supporting 2-year-olds, so that when they start school, it's not, hey, you're in school, let's find out what support you need. It's, we know what support you need. You've been having it for 3 years and you're on the tail end of the support you need, because you're not supposed to need something like speech and language therapy for the rest of your life. You're supposed to need it, reach your communication potential, and then we go away and we go and see the next ones. It's not supposed to be absolutely for the rest of your life. You need a speech language therapist weekly. I don't know how I would fill all of that time for somebody for years and years and years. And it still feels a bit like, it's great that they're revising it because it clearly is not working. There isn't a single child that I work with at the moment who isn't being failed by the system in some way, shape, or form. But I just think 4 or 5 is not early help.
No.
2 is early help. What happens when you put the support in at 2 and they come to school with more skills than those children are currently starting school with? Because also, how on earth are these teachers supposed to be able to do this?
Yes.
You're just asking people who are already working really, really hard to just work harder. And I don't think that's the solution at all. Give speech and language therapists, as an example, obviously I'm talking about what I know, give us more funding, create more of us by opening more university spaces and encouraging us to go to university to do it in the first place, and let us start seeing children at 2, and let's actually turn this curve around.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. It's so important to put this out there, because I just wouldn't have had a clue that that is the age where actually we should be kind of getting curious about our children's communication, and that actually it's got to be earlier than school age. Like in my head, I thought, yeah, maybe around 3. Like I just didn't actually know that myself. So I feel like, hopefully this will raise awareness to the listeners that actually the earlier the better.
We're letting children start school at a serious disadvantage. And once you then have this enormous gap to try and catch up. And I just think you're making it really difficult for everybody. You're making it difficult for the teachers, and you're making it difficult for the pupils that are there.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was 4 billion that was being pumped into the special educational needs.
I mean, Laura, we have to say allegedly. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, fingers
Can you
crossed.
tell I don't have very much faith in it?
No, I don't think anyone does, though, because we all know how much of an issue it is, and we all hear about families that are suffering, and it's really hard. I've just made a note of the cost to the nation of poor communication. Was that what it was called?
I think it was called Cost to the Nation of Children's Poor Communication.
Okay, I'm gonna find that and pop the link in the show notes if people did want to have a little look at it.
I mean, I have to say it is old now, but in my view, and I don't think many speech therapists would argue with the principles in there, but of course, things are now so much more expensive that the cost analysis that they've done probably doesn't make much sense. But the principle there of early intervention has better outcomes for children, is generally more cost effective, is true. And maybe part of the reason schools are now so much more in a mess than they were when I first qualified is that we're giving way less early intervention. I don't know for
Mm.
sure. It's a big claim, but I'm happy to stand by it. I'm not an MP, so I don't need to back it up. I
Yeah.
just, hello, please can somebody look at that, and please can somebody just give that a thought?
Yes. Like thinking about, when kids start school, there's always stuff in the news about like, oh, there's this percentage of children are still not potty trained or can't use a toilet and they're still in nappies. And, you hear about that kind of thing. And would you say there's a connection between that and speech and language therapy as well?
Well, I
Or,
just think those children who are not potty trained, who are they? Are we talking here because about typically developing children in all other aspects, neurotypical as in not autistic or have ADHD or any other neurodivergence, don't have any special education needs, and so therefore are just the very typically developing children of parents who, what I think the assumption in the press often is, that can't be bothered to toilet train them? I suspect not. I suspect those numbers are coming from the cohort of children who require the EHCPs in school, who have some level of additional need. And therefore, actually, it's not really about being potty trained. Sometimes it's about having the communication skills to say, I need the toilet. Sometimes it's about the ability to recognize I have a full bladder and that means I need to do something about it.
yeah.
And so I think some statistics like that are sort of purposefully misleading, and actually they're not, typically developing children who
Yeah.
just can't be bothered. I
Yeah,
don't think
I
those really
agree.
exist.
I have to be honest. I think when, again, my youngest started school the first time around before we deferred him, there was a few times where he had accidents and he's like, I don't know when I need a wee. I don't know. It's just like his bladder is not telling his brain or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no coherence there with that connection. And so I think
Yeah.
clearly, yeah, he just was not developed enough. But I guess there's so many different things that
But
can.
that's different. That, having a couple of accidents, particularly when you're busy and absorbed in something else, is quite different to not being potty trained at all and going to school in nappies and needing somebody to put you down on a changing mat.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Like they are two different things, because I think probably most parents have experience of their child getting absorbed into something and having an accident. You go, oh, you've been potty trained for a while, mate. What happened? What happened there? And they were just so busy.
Yeah, they're so engrossed.
Um, yeah, which
Yeah.
I think is probably a bit different.
Yeah, true. Okay. So, what three tips? You may have answered this already with the 16 to 16 thing that you mentioned earlier, but what three tips can you give today to a parent who just wants to make sure that they're developing their child's communication skills in the right way?
So, one is to try to think about the way that you talk to your child. So, we as parents, this is something I hear happening all the time, is as parents or adults with young children, we're trying to encourage communication. So, we ask them loads of questions. And that ends up being like, oh, have you got the car? Have you got the red car? Does the car go beep beep? Oh, are you enjoying that? Are you putting the car at the top of the ramp? Oh, look, is the car going down the ramp? It's just question after question after question after question after question. It's not a conducive environment to learn what the words that adult is saying mean, and it also doesn't foster that turn taking back and forth nature of communication. As an example, Laura, like, this is a podcast, you are the host, so I knew you were going to be asking me questions. That's made me feel a bit more nervous, not loads nervous because you've been very nice, but it has made me feel much more nervous than if we were just phoning each other up for a chat about some work we were going to do together later on, for example, because it is not quite the typical nature of a back and forth conversation. So it makes me feel a bit more nervous, or a bit like an interview might or something.
Yeah.
So I always, if I had one thing that I could say to parents, like I could stand outside the hospital as everybody's coming out with their babies in the baby car, being like, you just need to know to do this one thing, it would be less asking, more explaining. So try to explain what's happening. You've got the red car. The car is at the top of the ramp. Whoa, it went down so fast. Wow, that was amazing. Explaining what's happening without asking loads of questions. And what you will notice as well is that when you say that to a child, they will actually respond to you in the way that they know how. They don't need you to ask them a question to take their turn. They will just take their turn anyway. Often they'll take it a bit more because they don't have that sense of pressure of, whoa, you're asking me lots of questions. That's quite hard work.
Mm.
So that's one thing. The other thing I would always try and say is try to make sure you get face to face, crouch down, lie down, lean on your arm on your shoulder. When you're even when you're out and about, try and crouch down to get face to face with them. Have the pram facing you for as long as you possibly can so that you can talk. I did that until my son didn't need to be in a pram anymore. He never really went forward facing. Very occasionally, if we were somewhere really interesting and I wanted him to be able to see, I would. But generally, he was facing me because actually he was talking to me and I need to be able to hear him and see him.
Yeah, I did the same actually. I remember that. I remember doing the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but with those like really big travel systems, often you can click the seat in one way or the other way. I often had him facing me.
Yeah.
So just getting face to face. And then I think the third thing, and I've sort of touched on this already, and I really don't mean to add to the bandwagon of, oh, parents are doing it all wrong, because they're certainly not. They're doing their best. But we need to remember that children learn and they learn language communication skills through responsive interactions with a parent or caregiver. In the very early days, it's from responsive interactions from somebody who loves them, i.e., mum and dad, and who smells good and smells right and looks right and, all that kind of stuff. That's really difficult to give your child those responsive interactions on a really, really, really regular basis when you are either glued to your phone, you have given your child access to a screen because they are not able, they're not programmed, they're not designed. It's literally asking them to do something that's impossible, that is to look at a screen and look up at you and keep sort of focusing on two things. They're just not capable of doing that. And screens and tablets and things for children are designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
So we're fighting a real losing battle. But if you can try and limit your screen time around your child, if you can try and limit your child's screen time, and just simple things like don't have the TV on in the background of the house. Like when you're not watching it, turn it off.
Yeah.
I watch TV with my kids. My kids watch TV pretty much every single day. I am not trying to say, oh, I never do this. I'm so perfect. It's parent, just so perfect. I'm not trying to say that at all. I am 100% realistic. It is an incredibly useful tool to get my kids to stay in one place. And sometimes my needs are bigger than their needs, and I need them to sit down and not really bother me so that I can drink a hot cup of tea day when I've been parenting all day. Sometimes that need feels like the bigger need, and I'm all for that. But I'm also, I suppose what I'm more trying to say is just be aware of what's happening in that moment. Learning isn't really happening. Communication development isn't really happening. Rest and reset time is happening, which is valuable and has a place. But don't confuse that with, oh, but they're watching Mr. Tumble and he's signing at them. So they're learning loads of signs. They'll learn the signs by you then sitting with them and signing it alongside and signing hello or good morning every morning for the next 5 mornings. That's when they'll actually pick them up.
Oh, I love this because my son has been off sick for about a week and like really poorly. And there has been a few moments where he's absolutely had the screen too much in the last couple of days, just because I've been juggling. And if I go up to him and talk to him, he's obviously very engrossed. And I always pause it and then speak to him, because if I'm saying something, you can just tell he's not listening at all. He can't even hear me. So I always pause it, say what I need to say, and then I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I've got to go on another call or whatever, because we have kind of been in survival mode. But yeah, I totally agree with all of that. The screen thing. So,
and I think that's where I'm really realistic. My son was poorly a couple of weeks ago. He had loads of screen time that day. He was really poorly, and we were just on the bed watching it together. I was actually trying to decorate his room that week. So I was painting and popping back in and help. And so I'm not saying, oh, never use them. Or that I never use them. I think trying to get through somebody being poorly is a really legitimate reason to be like, whoa, screen time went up a lot today, didn't it? Fine. But just knowing that that's because they're poorly and you're doing it for that reason, not because you think you've just taught them loads of number stuff through number blocks.
Yeah. And it's just being mindful of when the screen time is becoming excessive, because like you said, it gets addictive. It's designed to be addictive, and we just need to be mindful of, okay, actually it's getting over the top now. Let's just have a bit of a reset, which I think every now and then we can all do with. So
And certainly I know I can benefit from that kind of thing for myself with my own use of screen time. Sometimes just going, no, I'm just going to completely detox from it this weekend. I'm not going anywhere near it. And then I'm much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, Kate, I have a final question for you that I ask everyone. What would you say to first-time pregnant version of yourself to support her, knowing what you know now?
I think I would say ask for more help, or accept more help, because I had a bit of a thing at times of feeling like I needed to do it and do it all by myself. Because, for example, when my mum and dad came to stay, I'd be like, no, I can do all the things that I need to do because you're not going to be here tomorrow. So I need to learn to do them tomorrow. And in retrospect, I should have just been like, yeah, I'll have an easier day today. It will make me more capable for tomorrow. It just because I've let you pack the changing bag today doesn't mean I now suddenly have lost the ability by magic to pack the changing bag. It just means I've been able to have a shower, shave my legs, and blow dry my hair today, which is just really nice, and enjoy it for today, because tomorrow you won't be able to do all of those things. So I think I got a bit sort of stuck on, I need to be able to live as it, just do everything, because there are days when I need to be able to do everything. And actually, I wish I had let myself go, today's a slightly nicer, easier day. Fantastic. Tomorrow will be harder. I can still do tomorrow, but I can also enjoy today. I almost felt like I had to sort of test myself a lot of the time. So I think it would be allow for more help, and ask for more help. It's not hard. No single part of having a newborn baby is hard, but when you put them all together, it's really difficult.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you do need some help. And if you've got a baby that doesn't like being put down, that's really difficult then to take a shower. So, take a really long one and get everything done and washed and beautified and buffed within an inch of its life, when you've got somebody there to hold the baby, so that the next day when it has to be 5 minutes, you barely got wet, you feel okay about it.
I think it's something that's so common with new mums. People pleasing, like our conditioning is to just, do everything, don't ask for help, be independent. And it's really hard to ask for that help. But actually, if your cup is filled and you're regulated, you can be a better parent. You're able to give out more. So actually just take the help when people offer it.
And I don't think actually for me it was even people pleasing. I think it was more the fear of, but if I don't do it today, will I be able to do it tomorrow? Because you're not going to be here tomorrow. I just think my mum would have loved it if I'd gone, Mum, it's a nightmare. I really need you. Here, hold this thing that won't stop crying.
Yeah.
I'm going for a walk. I think she actually would have relished the opportunity, and my dad would have, to help me that much. It was more me feeling like, but I won't be able to do this tomorrow, so I have to get through it today to know that I can. And actually, every day is different, and the baby might have been an absolute dream for the next week, and it was fine anyway.
Yes. Yeah. The people pleasing was probably more, like the clients that I see, and actually something that I personally had an issue with. But yeah, isn't that fascinating how I guess we're always trying to think of what's coming ahead, when really it's actually so hard to live in the moment when you're a new mum. You're always worrying about what's to come. And so, it makes it very tricky. So it's lovely advice to first time pregnant version of Kate. Well, Kate, thank you so much. It's gone very quickly and I've really enjoyed this chat. It's really, really
me too. I have.
So helpful as well. I think a lot of people will find a lot of value in this. So thank you very much.
I really hope so.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
So I have a website, which is www.wecancommunikate, but the final C in communicate is with a K for my name. So it's COMMUNIKATE.co.uk. But I am also, probably the best place really to find me is on Instagram. And my username there is We Can CommuniKate, because that is where I share tips and advice, and sometimes put like ask me anything question boxes up and those kinds of things. So that's kind of where I am a bit more interactive. My website is a bit boring, really.
No, your Insta is very helpful. I've had a little nose at your Insta for a while now, and even though I'm probably not one of your ideal clients, I just find it fascinating. And I guess it's just because of like the clients that I would support as well. It's just and also I can signpost people to you when they're struggling as well. Because
that would be great.
Yeah, there are a few people that I know that have had those sort of communication concerns. So so yes, thank you so much.
Pleasure. See you soon.
All right, see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.